Hello, how are you all doing? Welcome, welcome. Let's get into the news about what's happening around the world. Things are getting intense. Check this out. Iran is attacking another country. We're going to talk about that right now. That country is also warning that it could respond with military attacks against Iran, another country. Is it joining the war or would it join? What happened to that general who was linked to the unidentified flying object cases, the one who's missing? Any more information about what happened to this person? There's chaos in Beirut. It's also getting intense with Israel's attacks on the terrorist group Hezbollah. Let's go into the details of what's happening. Also, regarding the global economic issue, how is this going to affect the world? How is it already affecting it? And what are the reactions from the countries? Why is Europe turning its back on the United States? And more details about what is happening on the planet. Thank you very much to everyone who is joining. I ask you, please give it a like, share it, say something, even just a hello so we know you're there. And every day we're here bringing you the information, what's happening on the planet, what's going on day by day. Today is the 5th. Wow, how fast March is going by, huh? March 5th. Go ahead and give it a like, share it, support the channel however you see fit. Let's get into the details. We'll start with this image. We see this now declassified image in which they claim that the Iranian regime is losing more and more air forces and, military infrastructure that is being damaged. These are, the latest images that have been declassified by the Pentagon showing how it is decreasing. In the next video, what's the issue? Or infrastructure, as they call it, military. But here we're also seeing planes. We're seeing, some hideouts where they have drones, that kind of thing. These are movements that are happening right now. Another thing also draws attention. This image. This comes, from images from over there, from Bushehr in Iran, where a person is driving on the road and suddenly, this happens right there at that moment. Take a look. Let's see if there's audio. I think there is. Let's listen. Impressive, impressive, impressive. There are multiple images from different places showing how things have been. A big greeting to the community, but let's move on to the next images. All right, just look at what's happening. According to reports, at least 30 police stations, this is over there. In Iran, 30 Iranian police stations belonging to the Islamic regime have reportedly been bombed in the last 40 minutes, according to reports. This is, just tremendous. Let's take a look at this footage and listen to that moment. In different parts of Iran, where these police forces operate, where these police stations are located, among other places, there have also been attacks. In places where there are launchers, where there are ammunition depots, where there are military bunkers, all of this is being attacked. It's part of what's happening, obviously, and it's a tremendous situation. Look, among these videos that are starting to appear, you see this one, for example, right? Where they are in Iran, they're watching from among the population itself and notice there's traffic, okay? There are people moving around. Obviously, it's, tremendous. Let's look at the next image. Let's go to the next image. Allow me. Here is what we're seeing. This is in Lebanon. This would be in Lebanon where they're showing, some chaos. This is because Israel sent an evacuation request. We're going to talk about that. We're going to discuss what's happening in that region. But I wanted you to see the image. We also have to, show the image. From Lebanon, the authorities in Lebanon, what are they saying? Listen to what the Lebanese government says. Let's listen to Lebanon.
I hope everyone understands that the decision to ban any military activity carried out by Hezbollah or elements affiliated with it is final, and anyone who violates this decision will be outside the law. As President of the Republic and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, I have given orders to the Army and Security Forces to detain any violator, and to implement the Army's plan to disarm Hezbollah in northern Lebanon immediately, even by force, even if this leads to a confrontation between the Army and Hezbollah. No one is above the law, nor greater than their homeland. At your service, Lebanon.
At your service, Lebanon, says Yosef Laon, the president of Lebanon, saying, look, you cannot have weapons. And if the army has to confront Hezbollah directly, it will do so, says the president of Lebanon, Jose Blau. We're going to talk right now about what's happening, but obviously this situation is important. And let's see, as the live broadcast goes on, we'll also address some specific issues like this moment we're seeing. Let's show the full image. This is an attack that could change the war. At least regarding its progress. Let's watch the first moment, then discuss. Let's not forget this moment, this explosion we just saw. Because this is what could take an important turn in another country and get them involved in the conflict. We're talking about Nakhchivan Airport, or Nakhchivan. If we look at the map right now to see where this place is and why, this country is already announcing that it could enter the conflict. This was one of those Iranian Shahed drones, the ones they say they have nothing to do with, says Iran. Well, obviously this wasn't believable. And look, this is the area. Let's see if this is the area. Let's move away a little. Let's move away a bit. Little by little, we're revealing where the place is. Yeah, I mean, this is an area where, well, this is part of Azerbaijan. Yes, we have to remember how the divisions ended up at this moment. Do you remember how everything ended up between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Well, this would now be part of Azerbaijan, and this attack has obviously caused a lot of anger. Let's go into the details of what happened and what the reactions might be. Explosions right next to the airport. Fortunately, they didn't hit inside the facilities, but that was clearly the intention. The goal was obviously to strike or attack an airport. There's also a school nearby. Azerbaijan reported a drone attack coming from Iranian territory that hit the autonomous region of Nakhchivan within the Caucasus, a very sensitive area. By the way, one of the drones crashed directly into a building, the T7. Whether it was one of the two or several of them, it says that it hit the airport terminal, causing an explosion that triggered an immediate alert among the authorities and the civilian population. A second drone fell near a school, which also raises concern for civilians. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan. He confirmed that at least 2 people were injured after the fire, although authorities are still assessing possible additional damages that are still developing. Minister of Defense Azeri stated firmly that the attack will not go unanswered. In other words, there will be a response. That's the issue here in this matter. They are not confirming that there will be a response. Military specialists are analyzing the remains of the drones to determine if their technology is Iranian, but they suspect it is. They want to see the exact origin, the possible guidance systems that were used during this operation, to determine definitively whether it was Iran or not. But there will be a response, he says. The government of Azerbaijan has already summoned, right from the start, they already called the Iranian ambassador. They said, look, come here and give us an explanation for this situation. Yes. See. In response, Iran has launched a wave of missile and drone attacks against Israel at this moment. There are also reports indicating that there are explosions in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Riyadh, at United States military bases in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, and in Jordan. Now, yesterday I was told about the death, for example, of a Colombian who was in Dubai, according to what the media in that country are reporting, right? And thanks to the person who gave me this information, it would be the death of a person who apparently lived there. I suppose he worked there, from what I understand. In the report from the Colombian media, it says that he worked in that country and lost his life while being in a Colombian apartment. Look at that. Because of a missile that hit on that side. Or in the end, I say, okay, well, obviously there are casualties that suddenly, well, are unusual. Because they're not people who are actually involved in the conflict itself. It's different. For example, if today you're on the front lines or in the middle of a conflict, it would make more sense, but suddenly people are dying who aren't in the middle of the conflict, but are in Dubai or in other countries. Well, yes, it draws attention because this has the potential to ignite the Middle East, and that's clearly the intention. The intention is to ignite the Middle East. Now, there are several issues, but Iran also claims, to add more fuel to the fire of what's happening. Iran insists that it had attacked a United States oil tanker. Iran claimed today, Thursday, that it attacked a United States oil tanker in the northern Persian Gulf. According to the statement from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard itself, the vessel was hit during the early morning by naval units of the elite military corps. Do you remember their version? Theirs? The oil tanker was reportedly set on fire after the impact, but this information has not been confirmed so far. Let's wait to see if this information is true because it would be tremendous. And obviously, it further increases the tension in the Strait of Hormuz. Right now, even though the United States has said that the United States government will guarantee the passage of the oil tankers, or are there guarantees? Vamos. Come on, security paid for by the United States government. And not only that, but the oil tankers passing through here will be escorted by the military. Look, just to give us an idea of the problem this is for some countries like countries in Asia, Japan, for example. In Japan, 90% of the oil and gas they receive comes from here, from this area, 90%. Over there, Korea, for example, South Korea, more or less 70-80% also get their oil from here. So, now that oil isn't coming out from here, how do you think Japan is doing and how do you think Korea is doing? Why do you think we've seen the stock markets drop over there? Because right now, nobody knows where they're going to get all the energy they need from. Nobody knows. There's no way. Everything has already been discussed. The oil that circulates around the world, the one that goes to the United States, the one that goes to Europe, all of that is already bought and spoken for. It's not like magically they're suddenly going to come up with millions of barrels of oil to send to Japan from somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe they could do it for a few months, but it's not immediate. So suddenly there could be a pause. Oil, gas to Japan. Just imagine all the machinery and everything Japan needs to produce and to stay lit and so on. It would be really serious since right now there's no certainty that there will even be enough energy. So obviously that's the case. The global tension isn't normal tension. It's not the tension of a war happening somewhere else. Not anymore. This goes beyond that. So let's see what happens with this oil tanker. If it's true, it will make this area even more tense. But in the meantime, let's move on to another topic. What's happening in Lebanon? Let's discuss the details. A few moments ago, we saw Jose or Josefanu. Who is this person? Let's show a little bit of that again.
Understand that the decision to prohibit any military activity carried out by Hezbollah or elements affiliated with it.
To prohibit any military activity carried out by Hezbollah, that's what Josefanu, the president over there in Lebanon, says. No, but he says the following. Let's get into the details. Why? When he makes the announcement that Hezbollah can't have weapons, no, it's simply not allowed. It's one thing to say it's forbidden, but to say the army, if necessary, will go and enforce the law. We're discussing something internal and very serious. He, besides, is dressed in military attire. Usually they don't remember Yosef. He's always wearing a tie. Goodbye. I find it striking that he's in military attire with the Lebanese flag behind him. But it's just that in Beirut, well, right now the streets are like that. People wanting to get out, they're evacuating, and it's just that, well, this isn't just anything. Israel issued an alert for the citizens of Lebanon. We mentioned it yesterday, I think at night, right? There was already an alert for certain areas to evacuate. No, you need to leave now because there will be bombings against Hezbollah. The Middle East conflict is in this new phase, isn't it? Israel ordered an immediate evacuation in the southern suburbs of Beirut and also in one of the areas where the armed group's stronghold is. Hello? This call was issued publicly by the Israeli army, obviously in Arabic, so that most people would hear it, and it warned about it. Well, an area where hundreds of thousands of people live, who left the place to save their lives from possible bombings. The order, obviously, caused scenes of panic where thousands of people began to flee toward the northern part of the city of Beirut. Let's go to the map to look at this situation, because the attacks are not toward the south of Lebanon, which is where they usually happen. I mean, this area is not the most common, not this whole section, but sometimes when things have gotten complicated, in the south of Beirut, in this area, some attacks are launched. Normally, if we get closer, we'll see it like from an aerial view. They're usually precision attacks. Let's give an example, okay? I mean, it's not that it's this building, obviously, or anything like that, but let's say intelligence detects that this building is where the leaders' meetings are taking place. Blow it up, just to give an example, right? So they say, well, in that place, within about a kilometer radius, it has to be evacuated. And they send the maps. They send flyers, sometimes with planes or sometimes just with messages via cell phone. And they tell you around that building or around this block, you have to evacuate within 500 meters or 1,000 meters. Usually they give them 30 minutes and tell them it's 30 minutes. And people have to quickly tell all the neighbors, everyone, get out of here. There's going to be an explosion, and people leave. Yes. This time, apparently, the messages didn't say just one block or one building, but entire areas. So if suddenly they tell you, hey, this whole neighborhood, for example, here we call them neighborhoods in Mexico, but let's say this whole sector, let's call it that, this whole sector, well, it needs to be evacuated, right? And, well, here live 200,000 people, 100,000 people, something like that. So obviously you can imagine the chaos. It's one thing to evacuate a block and another thing to evacuate an entire sector. So, and with little notice, obviously people often don't just leave like that. They want to take valuable things with them from here and there. And then it turns into chaos. On top of that, everyone wants to leave by car or whatever, and it gets complicated. Lebanon is getting caught up in a conflict. It's in Iran. But that Israel, and yes, this was surprising, I turned around, but not really, since it's not like Israel just started shooting at the Lebanese for no reason. That's not how it works. The mistake, from my point of view about Hezbollah, was saying, oh, well, you're attacking Iran, so I'm going to shoot. They had said they weren't going to attack. Yes, the attack was supposed to be a precision strike by the United States, Israel, and Iran, but since it wasn't precise and instead there have been broader attacks, Hezbollah said, so should I get involved in the conflict? The thing is that Hezbollah, by getting involved in the conflict, is a Hezbollah with far fewer weapons, with much less strength than in other times. With a leadership card, with few weapons, with their own country, with their country's army, against themselves, which was logical that at some point it was going to happen. Well, it's a group that operates for another country. It's a paramilitary group, a terrorist group that operates for another country. When Iran doesn't like a politician, it sends Hezbollah to eliminate that politician in Lebanon. In other words, it's Iran having an army over Lebanon called Hezbollah, which operates whenever they want, at the orders of the current law in power. So obviously they're already fed up with this. Well, now Lebanon chooses a president who wants Hezbollah to leave, not to disappear, but to lay down their arms. Because if you get to the point where you want them to disappear, that would lead to a conflict, a civil war as well. Well, it's not exactly that either, but anyway, that's how things are on that topic. Let's move on to other important matters. Check this out. Well, this image, if we can put it up here, this would be in the United Arab Emirates, what we're seeing here. Yes. According to reports, as of now, there have been at least 1,138 drone attacks just in the United Arab Emirates. I mean, we're talking yes. Sooner or later, the Arab countries are going to react. Meanwhile, Europe, the 27 countries of the European Union, have been applauding the Middle Eastern countries for not attacking Iran. The two ministers of the European Union acknowledged the commitment of the Gulf Cooperation Council to prevent the use of their territories in offensives against Tehran. In other words, they see it as good. They see that it's correct. That Middle Eastern countries that are being attacked do not allow the United States and Israel to use their bases to attack Iran. So, this comment made by the European Union, which we will look at in detail in a moment, is basically a comment that is against the United States operations in Iran. Why? Why is this? It's not that Europe is in favor of the Ayatollah. Obviously not. What we're seeing is that Europe is one that doesn't want to get involved in the conflict. And two, they're extremely angry with Trump because of everything that has happened this year. This year, Europe has been hit the hardest, and there are two regions that are currently the most affected by the war with Iran, Europe and Asia. Or by far the United States, with the stock markets going up, the dollar going up. But in Europe, well, it would be the first region that could face a risky situation, for example, terrorism. They could also face the issue of oil since they get much of it from Arab countries, which they won't receive. But first of all, the Asians, who are the ones that receive the most oil from that area. So ministers of the European Union are acknowledging that commitment. They say, the formal recognition of the inherent right of the Gulf Cooperation Council states to defend themselves against armed attacks. In accordance with Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, the joint statement issued by the foreign ministers of the European Union was supported. According to reports, this declaration emphasized that Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates can contribute. They can take the necessary actions to protect their security and stability following the recent aggressions attributed to Iran. According to information from the 27 countries, they consider the renewed commitment to prevent territories from being used in attacks against Iran to be especially relevant. So, they agree with that part? 1,138 attacks just in the United Arab Emirates. There have been casualties, there has been destruction, and besides, when you see this, tell me, when you find out that there have been 1,138 drone attacks. Who would want to go on vacation to the United Arab Emirates right now? Who would want to go to Dubai? Who would want to go to all these super luxurious cities? Well, no, they're going to say no. In this case, I'd rather go to, you don't have to vacation there. I'd rather go to Tokyo or who knows what other city. I'm not saying, people who want to take a trip there, well, obviously I don't think so. How many cancellations must there be right now, right? Well, then the effect is, in that sense, at least for many countries, it's going to be very serious. Not now, it's not the same effect everywhere. We'll talk more about that later, but let's move on to another topic as well. It's very serious. This gentleman over here, he's a general, a former general of the United States, a general who was involved in very high-level projects. Regarding military aerospace technology, yes, he was close to topics related to UFOs, also to military satellites. A person who, let's say, is important for the Pentagon, and now he's missing, and still missing. But the strangest part is starting to happen right now. Because he was an expert hiker, he's a United States general, and his hobby was hiking. So he had the equipment, he had the knowledge, the training, and so on to go hiking. The time when he disappeared, when he went hiking, was a very different occasion. Because as a good hiker, you bring the necessary tools for hiking, at least the basic ones. Hey, what are we going to say? One of those Swiss Army knives, as a tool, or if you brought extra water, things like that. Come on. The details. Sometimes a radio or a satellite phone, things like that, especially when you go hiking more regularly. You bring certain tools, especially being the kind of person he is. Him. The retired United States General William Nail Maxland, 68 years old, has taken an unexpected turn since a possible sighting of him was reported in New Mexico. According to reports, he was last seen at 11 a.m. last Friday in Albuquerque near Coyle Run Court in the Northeast. Friends of the general indicated that he left the house and didn't take anything at all. In fact, he didn't even take his watch, he didn't take his phone, he didn't take anything at all. He usually goes hiking and cycling in those areas very often, but this time he left without anything. A woman claims on social media to have seen a man with his same characteristics near the Wish-Wash Trail in Piedra Canyon. Right when the general was already reported missing, she saw him pass by there. According to the testimony, the man was standing near a bridge at the beginning of the trail. He was on the bridge, just looking around at nothing. No, but it's not like she saw him jump or anything. She doesn't say that. She just says that she saw him, where there was a bridge, this person, this general. Obviously, they went to check if there was anything on the bridge, but they haven't found absolutely anything so far, at least. The authorities from the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office are leading an investigation and have asked the public to check their security cameras in their area and send any relevant information. Search and rescue teams from New Mexico have already participated in very intensive operations throughout the weekend in the area, Albuquerque open space. The police also issued a silver alert. It is used to locate missing elderly adults or people with possible medical conditions who could be at risk. The case obviously generates a lot of tension because he was an investigator, part of that group of generals at the Air Force Research Laboratory in Wright-Patterson, which has science and technology programs with budgets of billions of dollars. And within the circle of men's ufological interest. And all of this, I knew he was an important figure. In fact, he appears in the WikiLeaks files. Yes, he appears in the WikiLeaks files, making references to the unidentified flying object topic. We're already talking about other years, but let's say that's also important. He also appears in the leaked emails of Joe Podesta in 2016. Do you remember Joe Podesta? This Democratic congressman who's close to Obama's circle. And he was a congressman who constantly wanted all the unidentified flying object related topics to be disclosed, right? Just like now there are other congressmen, even some Republicans. Well, at that time, Joe Podesta tried to push for disclosure and achieve some successes, like the disclosure where they talked about the musician Tom Lalange, who claimed that General McCallens was involved in discussions about disclosing information about UFOs, about UAPs. There were several references in those documents that claimed this general had privileged information, that he was close to those topics. The FBI is already involved in the case, although the investigation is still being led, or are those who are officially in charge of the investigation? That's the local sheriff. For now, if certain requirements or characteristics are already met, the search is expanded even further, right? But this laboratory where he worked is related, for example, to the Roswell incident. I mean, it's a crazy topic too, right? But he's involved in those matters. Anyway, the point is that the search operations continue. The family obviously keeps insisting. At least the family says that up to now, they don't see any situation where he would have been in danger. As for whether he was being harassed or if someone was after him, they say they have no evidence of that. They don't know what happened to him. At the moment, they simply don't know. They know where he was, in which area, but so far, he hasn't been found. So, could it be that he's lost somewhere? Could he be hiding for some reason? I mean, who knows? We'll try to give more information as it comes up. In the meantime, that's what is known for now about this general. If the people watching us over there around the bunker have seen him, then obviously first contact the authorities and then get in touch with us and let us know. But obviously, first check with the authorities of that country. Let's move on to other matters, also interesting, about what's happening in the world. Check out this image. Let's see if we can show it on the screen. Give me a moment. This. Let's see if I can see it. There it is, they say. It's the Azerbaijani army that's starting to show movement. This could be partly because of the announcement they made a little while ago that they're going to take retaliation. I see this image more like those images that the Azerbaijani government itself already has, right? And because it's almost like a parade, basically that's how I see it. But they start showing these very classic images of when a country wants to show power, right? So they started showing, well, these images, and you think, how fast is it? I don't really see it as if there's actually a military movement. At least I don't see it that way. I see the typical image of Chile, but well, those are the things they're publishing, kind of showing a bit of strength. What they do end up showing is that it's a Chaje, the plane. These are archive images, but they keep showing that it's a Chaje. There we will see this movement, but really, right? I mean, if you start getting interested, I don't think so. But anyway, let's move on to other matters because there's movement in Yellowstone. Notice that there is some movement happening. An eruption in a geyser at Yellowstone, which would be the largest geyser, the largest acid geyser it has. Not only in the Yellowstone area, but it's also the largest acid geyser on the planet, and it erupted. I'm sure it's being reported. The Yellowstone geyser, considered the largest acid geyser on the planet, has erupted again in Yellowstone National Park after being inactive for years. This geyser was inactive, and suddenly it has become active. The last time it showed any activity was recorded in December 2020. 6 years have passed, and the activity has returned. The geyser is located in the Norris Geyser Basin, one of the most active geothermal areas on the planet, and one of the most important places, let's say also one of the best known for monitoring this volcano. Aesis or Aesinus. It would be approximately 200 meters in diameter, which makes it the largest acid geyser on the planet, according to what science has detected. The eruptions recorded in recent days have been intermittent, some reaching heights of up to 9 meters, lasting up to 3 minutes. In the past, back in the 70s, experts say that the geyser's eruptions could last up to 90 minutes, expelling hot acidic water at almost irregular intervals, he says. This activity is coming back. And the scientist Mike Pollan from the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory confirmed that during the month of February and so far in March, he has seen this activity. The phenomenon also coincides with a recent finding by researchers who detected 86,000 hidden earthquakes that had not been detected before in Yellowstone between 2008 and 2022. They found a new tool, a tool that had been detecting them unintentionally, and they had confirmed it, but they hadn't published it. More than half. These seismic movements are small swarms of micro-earthquakes that have occurred in recent years. And this would show what some experts say, that there has been more activity for years in Yellowstone than has been reported. The phenomenon coincides with a confirmation. This could lead to there is still no confirmation that there is more activity. But they assure that a super eruption, if it were to happen, would be more than 100 times more powerful than Krakatoa, which, as we know, caused problems on a global scale. Because all that material being released causes the atmosphere to be blocked, the sun gets blocked, and then the planet starts to cool down to a level where one of the problems that can be foreseen in an eruption of Yellowstone, aside from everything around it which could be affected or even disappear, aside from that, the planet would get darker, but not like nighttime. I mean, it's not like it would be night every day. No, not that either. But that wouldn't happen. We would have intense cloudiness. but on the planet there would be very strange rains, very different from the rains we know now. And above all, there wouldn't be sunlight for crops. So there would be a very rapid reduction in food supply. New ways of producing food would have to be found, maybe using these warehouses with artificial light, and you would have to generate a lot of energy to be able to produce food. Basically, there are already projects trying to figure out what to do in case of a super eruption. Now, it's extremely rare for an eruption of this type to happen in Yellowstone. I mean, extremely rare. 3 super eruptions have been recorded. 2.08 million years ago, 1.3 million years ago, and 631,000 years ago. Scientists say that if they see any activity, they will report it, but so far they haven't seen enough activity for an eruption of that type. There's even a National Aeronautics and Space Administration project where they want to build a giant geothermal plant and get as much energy as possible from Yellowstone, with the plan to gradually reduce Yellowstone's energy over the years. It's a very expensive topic, and so far it hasn't been accepted. They haven't wanted to accept it, so that's how things are with Yellowstone. It's a topic we always need to pay attention to, something we need to be aware of, but let's hope we never have to experience an eruption of this kind. Notice that Canada could be the next country to enter the conflict. At least they're suggesting that they might get involved at some point. The assessment of military involvement in the Iran war states that, according to Prime Minister Mark Carney, it cannot be ruled out. I mean, it's not that they're saying we're going to enter the war, but what Canada is saying is that, well, there's a possibility, right? Obviously, there's a possibility. And that's interesting, especially considering that Mark Carney gets along terribly with Donald Trump. But for him to say this could show, I mean, just the fact that he says it, what the Europeans have been doing is kind of going against Trump because they're really upset. But in the case of Canada, which is also very upset and has gone against him in almost everything, the Prime Minister of Canada raised geopolitical concerns by stating his country cannot rule out possible military involvement in the war. During an official visit to Australia, as is known, he was asked whether he would get directly involved in the conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran. His response was forceful but also nuanced. He says you can never categorically rule out participation, although he clarifies that for now the scenario is still hypothetical. He says the regional conflict has intensified drastically, but we are still analyzing. You can't rule it out, he says. Carney. He emphasized Canada's ongoing priority to protect its citizens and support allies, also leaving open the possibility that there could be military cooperation if the situation requires it later on. At the same time, Ottawa is also supporting international efforts to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. So, even since that time, Canada has also been among those criticizing Iran for not having nuclear weapons. It hasn't been a country that has insisted on it, so is that the logic? Australia too, by the way, and Australia has them. Both Canada and Australia are among the countries with the strongest intelligence connections with the United States. They're also part of the famous Five Eyes countries, which are 5 countries, obviously. So that's the topic. Let's move on to other important matters. Alright, let's go to the comments actually. Let's go to the comments quickly. How have you been? Ghostwriter Eliseo Benedicto. Very good. It's a pleasure to be able to read you all. We'll talk about other topics in a bit. We're also preparing the next live stream, but this is the first update of the day. How have you been? Greetings, Carlos Martinez. And the Lebanese leader? Not even he believes what he's saying, says Carlos. How have you been, Carlos? Greetings. Very good, Patrick. How are you? Greetings to Florida over there in the United States. Greetings to Tabby. How have you been? Yes, it's part of Chile, definitely. Greetings. How have you been, Camilo? But those are things they show, not like saying, here we are, not showing strength. Carlos Martinez, Aurelio, how have you been, Aurelio? Already with drops? Greetings. Very good. This one who's around there says me. He might be there. Chester Bennington's dad says, greetings. How have you been? Very good. A huge greeting to the whole community who says, is it really his dad? Of Chester Bennington. That's the guy from Lincoln Park, right? Bennington. Are you serious or are you trolling me? Bennington, Chester? He talks about the rumors linking Chester with the deceased vocalist. He says to Chester, the deceased, when I could have been the former boss. He says they're conspiracy theories. Oh no, that's not true. This one. Greetings. Me, Cardo. Very good. What's up, David? Greetings, Marcela Menio. Gaetan, how have you been? Very good, Nico. How are you, Rosa? Thank you very much to the whole community, Omar says. I started to see gas prices go up in New York, says Omar Cañon. Thanks for the info, Omar. Well, just imagine, it hasn't even been a week and it's already going up. Yeah, it's really something. We'll talk about it in the next broadcast, how the markets are doing and all that. But it's really crazy, isn't it? I mean, the dollar keeps going up. It just keeps rising. By the way, later we'll analyze how it's going, right? And we'll keep talking about it. But definitely oil is going up. The dollar is going up. Oil is higher than yesterday. It's already skyrocketing, right? And I think if they confirm this, what they're saying about the oil tanker, we'll talk about it later in more detail. Well, it would be really big news in that sense, right? Why? So then that guarantee Trump was talking about wouldn't be working very well. So that's the issue, right? Greetings. How have you been from Panama? Says Jose Fuentes. Great. How have you been? Namesake? Well, listen, we'll see each other in a little while. Cristiana Arana as a state. Greetings. How are you? Very good. Mauro visiting reproductive, says Mauro. Great, Mauro. That's good. Adilson, how have you been? Well, we'll see each other in a little while. Thank you very much for sharing, for liking. We'll see each other in a moment.